Hello and welcome to Art 13131. We're in week 7 now, so we're heading toward the end. If you haven't gotten me your work from prior weeks, at least up to like week 4, week 5, all this work should have gotten to me, and then maybe I'm asking you to do more to it for a better grade, and then get that back to me. That's why I ask that it's best for you to send this work to me by the following week that I posted it. Although I will grade and accept work until the end of the semester. But it's best to get it into me, of course, early, certainly by the second week, by the following week. And if we're in week 7 now, so week 5 stuff, we should be finishing up and have all this work already done. Okay. That's the best way to keep up because it's going to get miserable by here and you have all these drawings to do and you haven't even gotten good grades on them yet because I didn't see them and ask maybe for you to work on them more, and then you did more work and you got a better grade. All that's going to take time. You're going to run out of time by these last weeks, even though week 11 is a to finish up prior assignments work and to do the final, which is matting and framing one of your best work. So we can talk about that again. I talked about it earlier in another video, matting and framing, and and as we get closer, I'll go ahead and talk about that again. But basically, you'll have a lot to choose from, and maybe you can do something even special, a special drawing for your final if you want. It doesn't have to be one of the assignments. Okay, so we're going to talk about number 12, illusion of depth. This is all perspective this week. There's 2-point perspective in buildings and houses, cabins, which I'll talk about, and then the corner of the room, another different perspective, but around the same idea of 2-point or 1-point. I'll get to that on Wednesday. Illusion of depth. If we go into Bing here, that's basically showing the illusion of depth because it's an illusion that things get smaller or closer together or fainter as they go away from you. There is depth there, and you're showing it in drawing by doing that. This tunnel here gets lighter at the end and darker as it's closer to you, but the railroad ties and the railroad gets smaller and closer together. It's called converging lines. So they converge back here at the horizon point and they get smaller. Well, are they really getting smaller? No, it's an illusion. It's because everything that is moving away from you appears to get smaller. Like if somebody was to walk away from you way down the block, they would appear to be very small, right? So that's the illusion. Here's another one that's good to do is, ladder going down into a hole. You have all the sides of this hole getting darker and darker down in here, and then you have the runs and the ladder uh, sides getting smaller, and the runs get closer together and smaller. Yeah, that's all illusion of depth. There's various ways to do it. Um, this is okay, but sometimes it just looks like a squares and not that you're actually going down into a corridor. It's not the greatest. This one's pretty good. A canoe going down a tunnel of water, and it gets darker and darker and darker down there, where you have all this nuance, right? All this shading showing the rock and how it's not perfectly a tube. It's a tube in some respects, but more like a rocky cave. Now you can show illusion of depth in several different ways. Here, a person, the branches and everything close, everything in the background is getting small, and I don't know what that is. It looks like an animal of some sort. Okay. I'll show you some better pictures of that sort of thing here. Oops. So hopefully this will work. This is a photograph, but you can see how the railroad ties and the rails converge down here. They get closer together, and all the ties get shorter and less defined, and they end up getting so close together you don't even notice them. They're apart. The telephone poles get closer together and appear to be. This is all an appearance. They're not really doing this. The telephone poles are probably the same size as you walk down here. What would they be? 15 feet or whatever, 20 feet tall. They'd still be that. But down in here, when you're standing here, they look like they're getting shorter and smaller. This is kind of a breakdown of it with no shading. So don't draw with no shading. This is just an idea that the trees, from one tree to the next, they are getting closer to each other, appearing, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they're overlapping each other too. That's a good way to show depth, as well as all these telephone poles getting smaller. The distance between them is shorter. You gotta remember that part. And they're not tilted. Everything's vertical. Doesn't matter if you're standing here and they're on the sides. They're not going to be tilted. So don't tilt anything. They're all... What? I don't know what that dog's doing in here. Here, let me see if I can find out what happened with that. I'll have to pick them individually. Okay, so eye level is the horizon line, typically. And so you're showing, if you're doing a road, of course the road is not white. The lines may be white, but the road is dark toned. A lot of students send me this road and it's just white as paper. No, it has a tone. Everything does. Sky, land, everything, unless it's white as paper, has a tone. All these lines in the road are getting shorter and closer together as they go away and less defined. That's showing the depth. Same with the trees, getting closer together distance-wise, appearing to, and they are, in fact, you can draw a line here and here to show that pretty much. Let's see if I can get another one or two. This is a pretty good one. The horse way down there, and all the trees are getting kind of shorter and smaller and lighter in color or tint, uh, in tone. These they're showing the light source coming from this side, right? They're sort of lit up here and there. And then they have shadow areas where branches are shadowing on there, cast shadow. But the trees are seemingly getting maybe closer together, better on this side, and getting shorter and shorter as they go in the distance. And everything down here is less defined and kind of faint, as opposed to in the front. This is more tone here than as they go away. They're slowly getting lighter and lighter. That's atmospheric perspective. I'll show you another version of that. Here's another path going down. Okay, the trees here are kind of thick. Light source on the left side. Right side, there's a shadow side to each tree. Each tree has a gradual change from light to dark side. And then you have all the smaller trees back there, and then leaves and stuff that they're not defined. You recognize that there's a tree back there, but it's very, very much not defined. And the path is sort of converging. It's getting narrower as it goes back. So back here it's more narrow than here. The width, that's an illusion. But that's how you're going to get this perspective on paper. There's another one. This one has the path going up and down over hills. It's a great way to show depth. Goes way into the back there, doing that. So you got these birds well defined here. Way back here, maybe a bird in a tree here, they're not defined, very small. But you see a little bird in there, maybe one there. But the path gets more narrow as it goes over the hill and over that hill and over that hill, and the trees all get shorter and smaller and thinner. Okay? That's the illusion of depth that you're going to be able to create. Here's one last version of it. Don't forget your light source. It's going to be coming from one side or the other, typically. That's the best way to draw anyway, because unless you're going to show cast shadow from the canopy and light coming down or something, still you want the shape of these trees to show up. And if they're all lit up, you're not going to have much shape. You have to have a shadow side and a light side to really have the shape show up. And then you have all the nuance of all the tones in between showing the texture of the tree. Okay. I'm going to show you some atmospheric perspective, which basically it's like this. So mountains in the foreground are darker. As they go away from you, they get lighter. It's really atmospheric perspective because there's particles in the air and possibly smoke or haze and whatever. And anyway, that's the way it works. They get more of a lesser tone, like a light faint gray. And then each one that overlaps each other gets darker as they come to you. And it gets a little lighter as it goes away. Sorry about this music. Took a turn on me. it's it's cool in a way, but it's kind of anyway. Atmospheric perspective. This one's really faint back here, but it tells you it's way back there in the distance. This is how you get that accomplished. These are all defined and darker up here. You got all this good contrast and tone, and then everything gets a little lighter back here. And the water too. It's more, reflective back here, and then here you have all these ripples. But it has a tone. Everything has a tone. Maybe it's very light right here where the sun may be back there in the mist, and it's very light here, but it's not light everywhere. So you have this great contrast going on when you do that. There's many versions of that here. Atmospheric perspective. You got the trails again. Many of those. These are great to show the depth, but you have to show that each tree is getting kind of shorter and closer together and thinner as you go away and less defined. There's tons of them here to look at if you want to look at more. There's other ways to do here's more atmospheric perspective. These here, and this one. To go back to the illusion of depth, there are other ways to accomplish it. This is depth. These rooms going off in the back. But you have to use 2-point or 1-point perspective with this, which I'm going to talk about on Wednesday. So if you want to do something like this, maybe wait till Wednesday to really start in on it. This is another good one too. Because basically with 1-point perspective, you have a horizon line back here and then a vanishing point dot, or up here it would be. And everything from the top goes to that vanishing point, and everything on the sides and around go to the vanishing point. Basically, all these lines are going to go to the vanishing point. And everything vertical, stays vertical. It doesn't go to any perspective point. This is the same with this one. These rooms they're good. It's a good way to do it, but you need to understand 2 and 1-point perspective. You can look it up on YouTube if you want. I'm going to provide that for you on Wednesday. But some of these, anything overlapping will show distance. But if you're going to do something like this, do more than 2 balls. You really want to get into this and have more than just two balls in a drawing. This is showing distance, so is that one. Any trees going back into the distance shows that illusion of depth. Okay, so I'll leave it at that and get some ideas. I just showed many, and get started on that, and then we'll talk with you on Wednesday about the other two assignments this week.